Hey, this is Pete's Dude Man with more answers to your guys' questions. Our first question today comes from Super Mario Fan 03, who asks, could I interest you in some chocolate? Chocolate? Did you say chocolate? Our next question comes from 8-Bit Die, who says, opinion on foreign movies as opposed to Hollywood ones. I don't know, for me, a movie is a movie. It can be good or bad no matter what country it comes from. There's plenty of Hollywood movies that are shit. There's plenty of foreign movies that are awesome. Musamania asks, there's a theory going around that Sun and Moon will be the final Pokemon games of this era, and that the series will be rebooted afterward. What do you think would constitute a Pokemon reboot, and what changes would you expect? First of all, is that I don't think this theory makes any sense at all. They've never done a Pokemon reboot after years and years and generations of generations. I don't know why that would change suddenly now. It's not even the type of formula of a thing that would have to be rebooted, because every generation's already kind of like its own story with the same exact concepts. I mean, kind of every Pokemon game is a reboot, right? It's like, oh, here's the hero who's a 10-year-old kid who's going through a new land to collect the 8 badges to become the champion. So I don't know how you would do anything that is a reboot to that unless you like start all over with new Pokemon and none of the old Pokemon return. And I can't see them even doing that for monetary reasons. But if your question is what would constitute a Pokemon reboot, I guess that's what it would be, is like the same exact thing again, but with none of the old Pokemon ever even coming back. And that just doesn't even make sense to me. Lord Genesect asks, would you be opposed to Genesect's inclusion in Super Smash Bros.? Hey, you can't ask about yourself being in the game. No, seriously though, I mean, if someone told me, oh yeah, Genesect's going to be in Super Smash Bros., I'd be like, okay. Like, I don't think it's like the number one choice for a new Pokemon in Smash Brothers, but it has enough stuff to have an interesting moveset, as do most Pokemon, I think, and it's an interesting enough of a character to be an interesting character, as redundant as that sounds. So no, I would not be opposed to Genesect in Super Smash Brothers. I think it would be odd, but I wouldn't be opposed. Bobby Lopez asks, what's your favorite live action show? This is actually a really hard one for me, because I honestly grew up watching cartoons even all through high school, and then even beyond that I still watch cartoons as my main form of like TV. The only thing I ever regularly watched that wasn't cartoons was Whose Line Is It Anyway, and random game shows. If you're talking about like a TV show with like an overarching story, I guess it would have to be Firefly, because I think that's the only one I ever stuck with and watched all the way to the end. Ridley Crade 187 asks, what moveset victory theme Coda called taunt, stage intro, palette swap, and idle animation would you give to a stack of 3 waffles with some syrup and a little bit of butter on top of it? See, these are the kind of questions I'm used to from my old subscriber question videos. So the moveset for this thing involves the waffles like spinning around like discs, like Kung Lao's hat, and like attacking, and also each of the little like square-shaped holes in the waffle can like shoot syrup out of it, and you can also get different flavors of jelly to shoot as a special move, and there's another special move that switches what flavor of jelly that you're shooting, and each different jelly has a different ability attached to it, like, blackberry jelly makes the opponent slip up, and strawberry jelly has like a fire effect. The victory theme for the waffles would be, do you like waffles? It'd just be like, do like ba 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 ba, something like that. The codec call would be something like, Colonel, I'm seeing my breakfast for the second time today, but I didn't throw it up, it's just here. And then the Colonel would say, like, those are waffles, Snake. I think Sakurai was hungry when he included this character. The taunt of the waffles would be, like, transforming into other breakfast things like pancakes and French toast. The stage intro would be just some like batter falling onto the stage and then cooking in the sun and becoming the waffles, and then the toppings all fall on it. The palette swap of the waffles would be different degrees of cooking it, like you have like burnt waffle, or like extra crispy waffle, or like floppy Eggo waffle that hasn't really been cooked much. And the idle animation would just be it sitting there completely still as like steam rises up from it. But the longer the battle goes on, the less steam there is because it starts to get cold. With that very important question out of the way, let's go on to Admiral N30, who asks, is there a character you want for Super Smash Bros. Who isn't popular among a general consensus? So traditionally, I've always advocated for long-time characters that like have this, what I think is this big historical importance to Nintendo that haven't been included yet. I've always been like, oh, Toad should be in Smash Brothers, Ridley should be in Smash Brothers, King K. Rool should be in Smash Brothers, and all those characters have fairly sizable fan bases. The one character that I group in with these ones that it doesn't seem like everyone's on board with has always been Meowth from Pokemon. I've always had to do extra advocating for Meowth from Pokemon, because I'm like, come on, this is like the Pokemon we see the most of besides Pikachu, and you know, just like Pikachu, this is like the one Pokemon we're gonna always see through every single generation as an important character, and no one cares. There is a Meowth fan base, and I am a Meowth fan for Smash Brothers. I'm a Meowth fan in general. But not everyone's on board with the idea. It's like, oh yeah, I see why you would want Meowth in Smash Brothers, like Ridley, K. Rool, and Toad. It's kind of like, that's weird. Why out of all the Pokemon would you want Meowth? So that's the one, I think, that isn't as popular as my other, like, oh, we should see these guys in Smash Brothers. PSP123 asks, have you ever seen an anime called Bungo Stray Dogs? Oh, that sounds really familiar. I need to look this up really quick. No, as it turns out, it was a completely different anime that I was thinking about. I don't know anything about this one, so sorry, PSP. If you could redesign any one Smash character's moveset besides Ganondorf, this person knows me well, this is Smash Master 9000, who and what would it be? Because I would totally love to change Ganondorf's moveset. I am going to take the same kind of road, where I'd want to take a character who I don't think needs to be clone-ish and make them non-clone-ish. And I think the character I would actually pick is Lucina. Because for one, out of like all the clones, she is the most clone. And I always was talking about how like, you know, Chrom doesn't have to be like a clone of Marth or Ike. And what did they add? Well, they added Robin, which is awesome. And then they added Lucina, who's just a clone of Marth. And I'm like, no, you can be unique with Lucina. That wasn't the intent, of course. Their intent was to, you know, just throw in Lucina as like, oh, we have a little bit of extra time, so here's Lucina. But I would want to change Lucina to be more unique. For one, like, her idle animation would always be that stance she's in. Looks like her counter stance. So that she is always like that. Her moves would be based on the animations of the attacks that she actually uses in Awakening, which are not exactly like Marth's. They do have differences. I'd probably combine in some of Chrom's animations just to add a little more uniqueness. Like, I always like that spinning, like, windmill sword attack that Chrom uses in that cutscene against her, and she does that too in that same cutscene. She has enough unique movements to make a totally different type of sword fighting style. Maybe you could even throw in switching to lances in her moveset. Maybe you could do some of what like Project Cross Zone did with Lucina, which was really, really zany and awesome. Anything just for my own redemption to prove that Lucina does not have to be a direct clone of Marth. At the very least, I wish that her critical hit Final Smash had a Fire Emblem Awakening style cut-in, like where you have like the split screen and her face appears and she's like, I challenge my fate! Bam! But they don't even do that. They have her say the line, but they don't have the cut-in, and that just would have made it. Chrom and Robin used the cut-in. So I would want to revamp Lucina to be unique. Big Boss Man 538 asks, is there anything about the American education system that you don't like? Oh, there's plenty of things. The first thing is, like, everything that goes wrong is always the teacher's fault. Your job as a teacher is always in danger, because if a kid says this, or if a kid doesn't perform as well as the government has decided they should, then it's your fault because you're the teacher and you don't have a job anymore and you can't get a job as a teacher anymore. It's very, very fingers pointed at the teacher. And this is coupled with the fact that we've decided that we're going to put all of our eggs into math and science and writing. Less on writing, it's more about the math and science. Everything goes into that. All the tests, everything that is the requirement of the kids to follow and do is all based on that. And so if you're not good at those things, you can't pass school, and it's the teacher's fault. And so any kids that maybe aren't as good as those things, but they're good at like the arts and the theaters and the sports, oh, that's too bad that they're good at those, but because if they're not good at the math and the science and the writing, then they're just a failure as a kid. I mean, what kind of message are we sending there? It's like, oh, you can't be smart unless you're smart in these specific areas, and it's the teacher's fault. But then even on that side, you can be horrible at math or science and really, really good at sports and still make it into some big universities, but you suck at math and writing and be a really, really great musician or really, really great artist, and no one cares. So no, there's so many things about our education system that's fucked up. It's not even funny. It is kind of funny. Waffles the Apprentice asks, would you be in favor of a Nintendo vs. Capcom game if it had similar mechanics to the MVC series? Totally! Oh, I love fighting games. I would love to see the Nintendo characters in a traditional styled fighting game like that, and I especially love ones that are crossovers with Capcom. So, that works out pretty well, I think. Also, Waffles the Apprentice is a great username. Ultra Caden asks, have you ever done a Nuzlocke of any Pokemon game? If so, what game? I did a Nuzlocke long time ago of Pokemon Leaf Green. And then I've also done a Nuzlocke of Pokemon X and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. So not a lot of Nuzlocke. Oh, I did one of Soul Silver as well. But I'd like to do more. They're very fun. We have a second question here from 8-Bit Die. Favorite superhero? Ultimately, I'd have to say Batman, which is really funny because I like the Marvel Universe and characters as a whole much more, but my single favorite superhero, I think, would have to be Batman. Anyone who knows my taste in fictional characters knows that my favorite characters are the normal guys who keep up with the superpowered people, and Batman is the ultimate example of that. He doesn't have any superpowers, he's just really smart and has built technology to help him keep up with everyone else, and that's enough. He can go toe-to-toe with pretty much any superhero of his universe just with his smarts and training and experience. And I really like that kind of character. Here's another one from Bobby Lopez. Do you think we'll see third-party characters who come from outside of Japan get added into Smash? I don't think it's an impossibility. I know we haven't seen it yet, but I don't see why not. It doesn't break any preconceived rules, right? The rule has always been they have to have originated in a video game. And so I don't see any problem with that. And there's third-party characters that I think a lot of people have interest in that were not created in Japan, such as Shovel Knight and Rayman. So I hope so. Ridley Crate asks, least favorite Mario title you've played? Ooh. If we're talking any Mario game, anything with Mario in the title, you know, I played a lot of the Mario spin-off games growing up, but not the really, really obscure stuff that's a little bit older than I am. And I know this is going to be kind of a broken record because I said this on a previous subscriber questions, I believe, but Mario Kart Super Circuit I did not enjoy that much, as opposed to any other Mario games I was playing. If you're talking about main Mario games, like Super Mario this, Super Mario that, that's really tough, because I liked pretty much everyone I played. I guess if I had to pick a least favorite, it'd be Super Mario Land, just because it was so different, but because it was so different, it had a lot of cool ideas in it, too. So that's a generally tough question for me. Ultra Caden asks, what third-party company would you like to see represented in Smash that hasn't already? For me, Ubisoft. I would love to see Rayman finally take that next step to being a fully playable character. It feels like he's so close, and if we're talking about companies that aren't already in Smash Brothers, I think that's the next step. We've already got Square Enix, we've already got Capcom, we've already got Konami. We had Konami before. So I'd love to see Ubisoft next. 8-Bit Die asks, out of all fictional females, who is your waifu, anime or otherwise? This is actually a really hard question for me because it's honestly not something I've ever thought of while watching anime. It's like I'm not able to put myself in that situation because I'm watching, you know, the story of this anime. So like it's something I don't even think about. I guess the closest thing for me is when I'm playing the Fire Emblem games, specifically Awakening and Fates. And based off of those, for Awakening, it would be Cherche. For Fate's Birthright, it would be Setsuna. And for Fate's Conquest, it would be Effie. So there's a whole spectrum there for you. And that's all the time we had for today. If you have any new questions, just go ahead and comment them in this video, and I'll see you next week for more answers. See you then.